Hey, I'm Pep, and today we're going to talk about long games. Now, some games take a long time to play, and other games take a really long time to play. And others feel like it takes forever to play, but somehow still end up on the top of BGG for almost ever. Some games not only take a long time to play, but they're also about time travel, so you're going back and essentially correcting mistakes from previous rounds, which really makes it feel like it's taking even longer. And some games really probably should be played over 2 days and have their own special place on the shelf so you don't feel like you have to hold them up while they're there. Okay, no, I think it's actually fun. But now this is where I have to take a quick break and mention that these, by many, are considered to be objectively good games. But they take forever. And a lot of time, people think taking forever is a bad thing. And I get it. If you're used to playing things like Codenames, playing something like Twilight Imperium is an entirely different experience. Although some people say that and will play this for 3 hours straight anyway, so what's the difference? Well, I'm here to tell you the difference. So get comfortable, like I clearly am, because this video is going to be long. Like the board games, get it? But don't worry, most of the actual important information is going to be in like the first third of the video. It's long for humor. Did I even say this was a pep talk? That intro was way too long. So, to sum it up, this is a pep talk about long games and how to handle them. And also I'm Pep. I probably said that part though. And I didn't do a double introduction for no reason. The whole point of the double introduction is because for a longer game, sometimes it'll go on so long that you tend to forget things that happened near the start of the game, including the rules. And that is my first point when it comes to these type of games. Be willing to have the rulebook handy and be ready to look up questions because you're going to be there a while, and if you make a mistake early on, it can really muddle up the game. Either that or be willing to accept that mistake and play the game the whole way through to the end. I suggest going with the first option though. Now if you're the person teaching the game, again, be ready that people are going to forget things. If an important rule is about to come up, especially if it's about to come up before somebody does something, try to mention it proactively and give them that little heads up that will cause this particular rule to come into play. And if you're forgetting things yourself as the rule teacher, periodically open the rulebook and kind of peruse things when it's not your turn. One of the other big reasons people don't like games is, of course, the obvious one. They're long. But you know what? A lot of that is just, it's in your mental space. Some people might not have the patience or might have a particular reason why they don't want to sit down for a long period of time. And that's fine. If that's you, maybe just try to avoid these kind of games or find people who will agree to break them up into segments. We'll get to the segment part later, but I want to mosey on back to just getting inside the right headspace. Think of it this way. When you go to watch a television show, sure, some are an hour long, but usually you think of them as being 20-30 minutes for a shorter show. Does that sound familiar to anyone? Codenames is like a TV show, a short TV show in fact. And when you're playing that kind of game, you know what you're expecting. You're going in and you're expecting that you're going to have a quick little burst of fun, and then you're going to have the option of whether or not you want to binge Codenames for the rest of the night. Often, the answer will be yes, but sometimes you just want to move on to a different game. Having a short game gives you that option. Now, when you have a longer game, of course, you don't have that option, and that's something that you need to be mentally prepared for. If you're playing a 2 to 4 hour game, you have to go into it knowing that it's going to be 4 hours. Complaining the game is taking forever at the 1 hour point makes no sense. It's like the kids in the back seat saying, "Are we there yet?" It's just annoying. And I get it, I really do. Sometimes you play a game that says on the box it'll take an hour and a half, and it ends up taking 3 hours. So about an hour and a half in, you kind of start wondering, what's going on? Why is this taking so long? And that'll start expressing itself out to all the other players at the table. But in my opinion, if you're going to play one of these long games, prepare yourself for it. And here's a couple things you can do. 1, have some drinks on hand. Alcoholic, non-alcoholic, whatever. Just make sure there's something that you can go and get more of. Juice, pop, water. Don't leave yourself at the point where you have to take a break from the game to go off and drive somewhere and get some new liquid. Same with snacks or food. If you're going to be doing this kind of game, either be prepared to take a break to go and get lunch or supper, or have all this food already available so people can be snacking and aren't just staring at the board for 20 minutes at a time between turns. That being said, having any other form of entertainment, music playing in the background, heck, maybe there's a movie on so people can kind of half focus on that while also focusing on the game. Depends how intense of a thinking game this is, of course, but whatever you need to make that long time work for you. But I can't nail this in enough. You need to be prepared that this game is going to take a while. Don't agree to play something that's 3 hours long if you actually only want to spend an hour on a game. Be ready for it. Imagine you're going to the theater and halfway through the movie you just say, "Oh, I don't really want to watch a movie anymore." It's not really about whether or not the movie was good for you. It's that you didn't go to the movie anticipating being there for 2.5 hours for some reason. So treat these long board games like they're a long movie. Imagine you're going to watch Lord of the Rings in the theaters. And I'm definitely not implying that you have to artificially enjoy the game either, but not every game is 100% about the enjoyment and the fun, but more about the challenge or the difficulty if it's a co-op game. So the short-winded version of that long-winded story is prepare your expectations for the reality of the game. Now, I did say earlier we'd get back to the subject of breaking games into multiple parts. And Lord of the Rings is a great example for that, because Lord of the Rings may be 3 movies, but it's telling one fluid story. So if you do have a group of players who really only want to spend an hour on a game, maybe you take a game like Twilight Imperium and you leave it set up on a table over the course of multiple game nights. I've done it before and it worked out fairly well. If you're going to do something like that, you want to make sure that you have a specific time set or a specific number of rounds set, but you have to have something set so that people know when it's time to stop playing. Some may want to keep going and others may feel it's gone on too long already. So just to make sure that it cuts off, you need to pick a time. And when you come back to the game, you really need to have some sort of recap to get everyone back into what happened. Talk about what happened on the last turn, who got what amount of points when, what kind of big battles might have gone on. That'll kind of re-trigger everyone's memories of the previous session of the game. Another thing to think about when it comes to these games is being careful not to get too bitter or too aggressive to one person, especially too early on. If you're going to be playing with the same people for 4 hours and halfway in you basically tell someone, "I'm going to destroy you for this entire game," that might not be fun by the 3-hour mark. I mean, maybe it is. Know your friends, and if your friends enjoy that sort of thing, have at it. Maybe that's the kind of thing that makes these games work for you. But I'd like to think for the average person, being targeted for 3 hours straight because of one little thing you did at the start probably doesn't seem fair or fun. And in a similar light, think about the decisions you make in game and remember that they're going to matter for the rest of the game. If you have a strategy that you think probably won't work, maybe don't try it just for the fun of it, because probably not working for 3 hours straight could really be a downer for you. And I've talked in a previous Pep Talk about what to do when you've made a mistake. Essentially try to start over and get things going. And I suggest that again in this case. Don't let one defeat kind of muddle the entire next 3 to 4 hours for you. Try to turn it around, come back and see what you can do. Maybe you're not going to win the game, but if you finish the game feeling like you accomplished something and you basically made a good comeback, then, I don't know, in my eyes, you won the game a little bit anyway. Now, normally I wouldn't think too much about poo-pooing particular strategies, especially if the purpose of them is to have fun, but I do suggest against any sort of absolute chaos strategy. I know some people like to just do whatever they want in the moment and see what happens, and they just want people to laugh, or they want people to be mad, or they just want to do whatever. In a game that's this long, though, I really suggest against that. Not only will you make a whole bunch of enemies, but things that should have worked out one way for a certain player might turn out completely opposite and end up hurting both of you. And you might think it's funny, but unless your chaos strategy is paying off and you're doing well because of it, you're really just hurting a bunch of people for no reason other than to be funny. And humor's great, but there's not a lot of 4-hour comedies, if you know what I mean. Especially romantic comedies. Usually they're like an hour and a half long. Speaking of romance, or just relationships in general, try not to let a particular relationship, whether it's a good friendship, or a girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, color who you should and shouldn't attack during this kind of game. Sure, some games might allow allies and it might make sense to work together, but maybe just try not focusing on the person that you are expected to give these kind of bonuses too? And if you do, maybe just be a little more willing to betray them than you usually would. Which is rich coming from me because I always promote don't betray anyone if you're allies. But over a longer game, especially if the game does feature mechanics for betrayal, it's something you should think about. And maybe it's even something that you should threaten so that people get the idea that that betrayal could be coming. You don't ever have to actually do it, but if they're constantly thinking about the betrayal, it might slow down their production of things because they're trying to still think of how they would protect themselves if you decide to go against them. Which might sound like betrayal to you, but not to me. And if you want an even better example of how you forget things over the course of a long game, I already forget what my first 2 points in this video were. Because yes, I'm shooting without a script. Did you expect something different if I'm wearing not a trench coat, not a raincoat, a overcoat? Give me a second. Bathrobe. Shower robe? I'm gonna go with bathrobe. And that somehow magically led into my next point. Be comfortable. Wear comfortable clothes. Find a comfortable chair. Get yourself a pillow. If you think you're gonna get cold, prepare yourself a blanket. Just, again, remember that you're going to be here a long time. Don't let yourself get uncomfortable on purpose. Do everything you can to make yourself comfortable. I mean, people have brought slippers to my house because my floors were cold. So think about that kind of stuff. And one more thing to think about. I'm lying, of course. There's probably going to be more than one more thing. But maybe be a little bit more lax about your rules on cell phones and other distractions during these kind of games. If the game is literally going to take all day and your entire game night, and on top of that, you might have people waiting 20 to 30 minutes between their turns, it's okay if people want to play games on their phones, or send text messages, or listen to music in some headphones. Because some people need that kind of thing. Sure, you want to sit down for a quick game of the one I've used as an example the entire time, Codenames, then yes, it makes sense. You can say, can you put your phone away? Like, the game's pretty fast. We're going to go through these things quickly. That makes sense. But if you're sitting down for a long, epic adventure, it's possible that people aren't going to be attentive the entire time. And I feel like everyone just has to kind of accept that. And I get it. Some of the older generation doesn't like us young folks on our phones all the time. Young folks? I'm like in my 30s. Am I young? I guess I'm young. But everybody's different, and everybody needs different things to keep them entertained. Maybe your way of keeping yourself entertained is to talk a lot whenever there's silence. Honestly, in a lot of ways, that's no different from someone instead retreating to their phone and talking to people on there. Except in some ways, maybe your talking is worse because you're disrupting other people at the table. So sometimes it's good to have a little self-introspective like that. And now I'm not even talking about long games. I'm just criticizing people for their methods of how they entertain themselves. Which has led me into another topic. I'm not even doing this on purpose. But if you're keeping yourself entertained, try to make sure it's not distracting to everyone else at the table, especially in a constant way. Sure, listen to music, that's fine. Maybe don't bob your head while you're listening to music and hum the words to the songs. Because then it's a little distracting. Other people might either try to join in with you, which could be distracting, or they might just not like how off-key you are. Maybe avoid tapping on the table and probably shaking the camera in this case. Speaking of distractions, I think like 100 large trucks have driven by while I was trying to record this video. And sometimes I just give up and talk over them, which has nothing to do with long games, but I have to warn you now, we're getting into the part of the video where I'm just extending the runtime for the humor part. Long video, long games, longevity, long-haired rabbits? I don't know anymore. Another kind of ironic part about me making a video about long games is that my favorite animal, which I can't reach, oh, I got him, is the turtle. This is 3 turtles on top of each other. But I really like turtles, and turtles live for a long time, just like these board games do. Which is another good reason to enjoy games that are this long, because they have a sort of longevity. You're not likely to play Twilight Imperium, enjoy it, and then put it away forever. It's likely to be something that will come up again and again. And sure, 20th example of me talking about Codenames, Codenames is often the same way. People will always come back to it because people really tend to enjoy this game. But that's not always true about fast games. There's some quicker games that you get the enjoyment out of and maybe only play once or twice. But I'd honestly be surprised if you got through a game like Twilight Imperium and didn't feel like you had to play again and again and again. Honestly, you're going to want to take some breaks in between that to get yourself comfortable again with the 7-hour gameplay. But, you know, it's all fun. And I'm not trying to review any of these games, although every game that I mentioned I do enjoy in one way or another. Except maybe Rising Sun, but listen, no offense, Eric Lang, I honestly do really enjoy the game, but every group of people I play with don't. And it hurts me. It hurts me because it's a long game, and it always takes us longer than intended. I think people just tend to overthink things. We have to look up exact rulings on, oh, this particular monster says you push things, and this says when things are pushed, this happens. But this effect, would it still happen if I've been pushed because the creature was there before? Like, there's a lot of weird little complicated things. But I don't blame you, Eric Lang, or anyone who made the game. Like I said, I enjoy the game. I think it's really good. And I don't blame the people who don't enjoy the game either. I guess I blame nobody. I guess no one is to blame. Someone's got to be to blame. But maybe everyone's to blame a little bit. I don't know. I like it though. And not just because you can be a turtle clan in it. But I do really like that part. And they are my favorite clan. I would like to argue that they're probably one of the best clans. Anyways, let's not talk about Rising Sun for too long. Instead, let's talk about Anachrony, which will segue into something else. But before that first segue, let's segue into the second segue, which is the fact that I'm 99% sure that this box is going over the top of the video. And that's because of bad planning. And what's important when you're setting down for a 3 to 4 hour game? Planning. Make sure that everyone actually has the time for it and that people don't have little things that'll come up to pull them away halfway through or make them end the game a little bit earlier. Because if you're 90% through a game and someone has to leave, do you actually set the game aside and finish the 10% later? No, I think the average person just stops the game and figures it out from there. Or takes that player out and tries to continue the game, which often doesn't work in a lot of these games. So yeah, just try to plan out your day and make sure that everyone is prepared and ready. Now the other segue was into the time travel bit and theme. Like, you're playing a game about time travel, you expect it's going to take a while, but not only that, the theme should be interesting to you so that you'll want to stick around for the entire time to play it. Time travel for a lot of people is a cool theme, so the idea that you're constantly going back and fixing mistakes will often make people forget about how game the long is. That wasn't right. I'm not fixing it. So if you're not really into time travel, maybe you flat out hate time travel, don't play this game, or just go into it trying to find something else about it you enjoy. I don't know. I really just say don't play it if you don't like time travel, honestly. Or do like I do. So there's a game, Alchemist, and honestly, probably a great game. I don't like the whole guessing aspect of it though. I don't like guessing. When I play Sudoku, I don't guess. I just don't do the hard ones because the hard ones actually require you to make guesses and then go back and check your guesses later. I'm just uncomfortable with that. I like figuring things out like a puzzle with like actual information. And when you're playing something like Alchemist, often you can't do that. And this one actually does something similar, but I don't mind it as much in this. But with Alchemist, you have to make these guesses. And so when I play, I actually do not. I play the entire game without using that mechanic. And I've come close to winning while completely skipping the main mechanic of that game before, focusing on items and selling things and the interactions with other players, whatever. I don't remember the game well enough to remember how I did it. But this game is the same. If you don't like the time travel bit, you can skip it. In fact, sometimes you're punished for sending things to the future or the past or however it works. But you don't have to. You have the option of just not doing it. And instead, you can treat it as a game where you're just trying to prevent a disaster that you know is coming. Maybe that's what's fun for you, then do that. As I've said, I don't really like Alchemist, but I can have fun with people by playing the game in a way that I do enjoy. All right, these lights are getting hot. I'll be right back. Oh, jeez. Let's take a weird excursion outside of the topic of this video and talk about the complete opposite. Medium length games. You thought I was going to talk about Codenames again, weren't you? Didn't you? Oh, it's a long day. Medium length games are great because they're the balance point between... It's flat on the ground. Medium length games are great because they are the balance point between a short and a long game. And they're the balance point between pretty much everything that I mentioned. You don't have to be paying as much attention or as little attention or have to plan as much time or whatever. These kind of games are usually the games that'll get played if you have a normal amount of time for a game night and you just kind of want to play something. I really like this one. 2 thumbs up. And if your game group is really used to playing a lot of shorter 98th time I've shown Codenames in this video games, then you probably want to try to jump to some sort of a medium length game first before just being like, hey, here's Twilight Struggle or Twilight Imperium. If you're going to make a long game, maybe name it Twilight something. It'll probably work out well. I was going to bring Millennium Blades over here too, but it was like on the bottom of my shelf and there's a lot of heavy stuff on top, so I just didn't want to. But it's another example of a long game that you probably mostly enjoy if you like what the game's about, which is kind of clever because it's a game about like deck building and tournaments, and it has a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic references and that kind of thing, but you're not really actually building the deck. You're building the deck accessories and like some of the better cards in the deck, and you're like buying and selling cards like you would with trading cards. It's really hard to explain now that I think of it. Which is kind of a thing about a lot of long games. Usually in order to explain them, it kind of takes a long time, and maybe get people to learn the games on their own if you really have to. Because like an hour and a half explanation before getting into a 7-hour game, I can see how that could kind of carry on a long time. Or if you know that the group is going to play these games more than once, basically just play the game for fun first. Maybe even set it up halfway through a game and basically be like, okay, let's just play, and as things happen, I'll teach you how they work. That could work. I'm going to actually try doing that next time.
That's a good idea, Pep.
Thanks, Pep. Having some sort of casual conversation during the game can probably help too, to make sure that people aren't just completely dead focused on exactly what's happening in the game at all times. It might be nice to just kind of chat. Maybe ask how everyone's day's been, Sometimes people don't ask that, and, if you've had a hard day, maybe you do want to talk about it. Don't talk about it forever, because, you're in the middle of a game, but, it can be nice. And if someone does ask you how your day's been, don't just say good. I mean, I understand a lot of times you don't necessarily... Okay. I understand a lot of times you don't necessarily want to talk about it, because, I don't know, if you've had a crappy day, you might not want to talk about it, but just say that. Just say, I've had a pretty crappy day, I don't want to talk about it though, let's just play this game. That's fine too. But on the other hand, if you've had an amazing day, tell people. And don't say good or, great. Just say like, yeah, I had a wonderful day, and it's getting even better because I'm getting to spend it with my best friends. And someone at the table is going to shed a tear, and it's going to be pretty great. Just talking like that almost made me shed a little tear. Because, compliment each other. I know. Not everyone likes doing that. A lot of people want to just keep very stoic, but if someone does something good, especially in a game that's 7 hours long, tell them they did a good job, even if it's a minor thing. Maybe they grabbed a resource you're about to get. Instead of saying, oh, that was mine, I hate you, say, man, that's a good choice, I was going to do that too, nice one, rather than, I hate you. You can hate them inside though, a little. Or you just say both. Oh, I hate you, but that's so smart. I was going to do that. Did you know I was going to do that? Maybe they have psychic powers. That's fun to test sometimes during games. Kind of like think about a particular thing. Maybe even think about something that's really weird and out there. And then see if someone does it to thwart you. Because maybe they have psychic powers and they're using and abusing those powers during that game. And that's not okay. Every once in a while, maybe try using some psychic powers of your own. If it starts working though, just make sure you don't pry deep. I mean, you really shouldn't be cheating at board games anyway, psychic powers or not, but like some people have private things they wouldn't want people to know. And so if you start hearing those things, just back off. That's not nice. That's invasive. Shame on you, really. I think at this point I'm going to record the ending just in case something happens. So, this has been my pep talk, and thanks for watching. And if you actually stayed through the whole thing and you didn't just somehow skip to this one spot, which isn't even going to be at the end of the video, so I might even be more impressed if you found this. And if you did that, I don't know, leave a comment below, because I think that would be hilarious. But if you made it through the end of the video, awesome. Thanks for watching. It's been a long one. It's going to be a little longer after this, I think. But if you have any questions or comments, or want to tell me never to do this again because for some reason you just had to watch the whole video and at this point you're tearing your hair out because I just won't stop talking, then yeah, comments below, and I'll get back to you and talk to you about it. I might never do this again. Maybe I'll do it once every 3.5 weeks. Who knows? But either way, I'll see you next time. Yeah, like I said, that wasn't going to be the end of the video. I just wanted to record that just in case. I am officially done talking about long games, though. I am just going to ramble for a little bit about lots of things. So if you're specifically here for a pep talk about longer games, get out now while you can, because we're not going to talk about a single long game other than campaign games such as things like Pathfinder Adventure Card Game or Gloomhaven, which I still never played. Feel free to throw me hate about that. I really want to. It just hasn't happened. Yeah, a lot of campaign games technically are these longer games. If you played the entire campaign, God, it might take literal days to get through. But often they're broken down into an hour or two segments. And so, I mean, there's nothing wrong with breaking actual longer games down to those segments if campaign games do it. But with campaign games, you really have to think about how many campaign segments do you play in one sitting. Even if they only take an hour and a half, do you actually spend 6 hours and do 6 of them? 4 of them? I don't think so. I think the average person probably plays 1, maybe 2. If you do a whole bunch, kudos to you. I mean, I guess if you can play D&D for like 8 to 12 hours at a time, or longer in some extreme cases, then why not play a campaign game that much? Am I like, okay, I wasn't sure. Sometimes the robe starts to open. I didn't want to expose myself too much. See, like I said, I've just given up on these loud trucks going by. It's just part of the video now. We had a power outage here, like the hurricane. I mean, if you're in the States, I know the hurricane definitely hit you a lot harder than it hit us here. So my thoughts to everyone down there. Some people lost their houses, some people lost their lives, and yeah, I really hope everyone is just doing as well as you can. I hope you found shelter. I hope if your house was damaged or destroyed, that you have some sort of compensation, you have insurance, you have something that's gonna cover it. I was just about to talk about the hurricane here affecting us. Some of us had our power out for quite a while. Yeah, I'd rather lose my power than lose my house. So yeah, I didn't expect when I started talking that I would start talking about the hurricane relief and everything. It's really important that people talk about it too, When bad things happen, it kind of sucks when everyone just kind of pushes it under the rug, Didn't affect me. It affected me a little, but like if you're on the other side of the coast or other side of the planet, maybe you don't care. I guess that's fine, but I don't know. Care a little, Not saying you have to send money or you have to go out and specifically help these people, but care, know that it happened. I mean, everything in history is about the fact that we know it happened. I'm sure there's lots of things that happened that we don't know about, but like, if 2,000 years ago we thought about things the way a lot of us do now, we just wouldn't even have history. People would be like, happened 20 kilometers down the road. Who cares? It's not our town. We don't need to record it. Well, probably should. All right, I really got to segue away here. What do you even segue to after that? Some board games might be too difficult for certain people. I know a game that I really enjoyed and I really liked the concept of was the Troubled Life of Billy Kerr. I think it's Troubled Life. Either way, when it first came out, Some people are very upset about the game just because of the fact that it exists, and it's essentially like watching someone who you know is going to die and trying to collect their story before he dies. And I mean, that's not exactly what's happening in the game, but that's kind of the gist of it. And I'm sure there's some people who may have actually gone through that exact process with a family member, and I could get why playing that game would not be fun for you. I mean, maybe in some cases it would be. It would let you relive the happy memories, same as you're living Billy's happy memories. Maybe it would help you relive some of your own happy memories with that family member or that friend. But at the same time, I can get why it wouldn't. And just, if you don't think a game is going to be good for you, if you think it's going to trigger a lot of unhappy memories, maybe, yeah, just avoid it. I mean, I don't have a good example, but I don't know. If someone you know was hit by a meteor, maybe don't play Evolution, because it's kind of, especially the climate, it's kind of about like extinction happening. Yeah, that's just a terrible example. Maybe it's just a game about cruises, and you have a huge fear of ships, or someone you know was gravely injured on a ship. You just don't want to play games about ships. I get it. This is all getting really somber, and yeah, oops. That's something a lot of people don't see in the background of a lot of this kind of stuff. I mean, I'm not saying it's fake when I'm peppy and happy and smiling and preparing to do a video, but like there's a little bit of that in the background. Because you're not always happy all the time, but you want to record videos, you want to make something interesting, you want to connect with people, and so you do something. But it for some people, it takes a certain amount of energy, and the longer you go and the longer the video is and the longer you talk, that energy can kind of dwindle. And a lot of times when you're done, you just kind of want to do nothing for a little bit. And I think if you could watch the camera after a lot of these video end, you would notice that. You would see a visible drop. I turn the camera off and then suddenly, go about whatever a day was. Just, you don't need to be happy and chipper and peppy all the time. It's really sad that a lot of times our society pushes that if you're not happy, if you're not enjoying something, like even we're talking about board games. Have I played this game before without a smile on my face or had a bad experience with it? Yeah. But if I'm going to talk about it, I'm going to talk about it positively, because there's so many more positive memories I had of this. And I don't know, like if you're going to review something, which this wasn't supposed to be, but if you're going to review something and you're going to talk about something, people want to see you be happy about that if you're talking positively about that, which I almost think is strange. Some games would give me fairly neutral feelings when I talk about them, but I would still have all positive things to say about them. Like, critically, this is a good game. Anachrony might actually be a good example of that. If I were to sit down and do a review, I'm not sure I could keep up like a happiness and an energy the whole time, but I'm not sure I'd say anything negative about it either. And yeah, it's hard. You want people to get that feeling that you've enjoyed it. Maybe it comes across as disingenuous if you don't seem like you're enjoying talking about it, right? I'm gonna try here again though. I'm gonna try to turn it around again. Let's talk about turtles. Funny enough, a lot of times people ask, where I got particular turtles, thinking that I have specific memories of each one. I don't really. I'll usually remember if I got a turtle from a particular person, but often when I see turtles, they're just in places, and I like the turtles. I don't really necessarily like connecting them to specific places that I got them. And I specifically like tortoises more than sea turtles, and I don't really like the Ninja Turtles. I always loved making the little joke that they're like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Tortoises. Like tortoises are turtles, but like they're specifically clearly tortoises, I think. Or are they sliders, which are actually turtle, like sea, aquatic based? Yeah. I also don't know everything about turtles, so turtle facts are not my forte. And that's okay too. That's a segment into a whole different topic on board games, that it's okay to not know everything, especially going into a game that's this long. If you don't know everything, that's fine. If someone asks you a question you don't know, admit to it, try to find the answer. Or ask them to find the answer if it's not their turn and you're trying to take your turn and they keep asking you questions when it's your turn and you can't take your turn. And then eventually someone's like, Pep, you know it's your turn, right? And then you want to yell at them, but then you think, no, it's okay. You have been waiting a long time. I could have told that other person to figure things out on their own rather than trying to do it myself. So you understand, maybe it's a little bit your fault, but you're still mad. You're still mad that it's your turn and you're just trying to take your turn and people just won't let you take your turn. Anyway, I think this is just where I'm going to end the video.